Okay, so this is part 3 in a wee mini series. We have done preaching the gospel to Protestants, preaching the gospel to Catholics, and I want to talk a little bit with my favourite Lorne in the whole world. Apart, like, that's impressive because Lorne sausage is great, but you're even better than that. So I want to talk to Lorne about preaching the gospel to internationals. So one of the things, particularly in the west of Scotland, but actually throughout Scotland, our scheme communities, I mean, when I first was in Berlanark 15 years ago, was predominantly white working class. Today there's a bunch of internationals about from numerous different reasons, and Lorne has over many years had a heart for reaching people with internationals and been involved in kind of that in different ways. So Lorne, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, maybe how you got involved with 20 Schemes, and then we'll chat a little bit about the international side of it.
Okay, so I'm a women's worker with 20 Schemes. I'm also the wife of the planter Tommy.
The planter Tommy.
And we are working in Maryhill just now. And but my work with internationals probably, that started off when I worked in the NHS. So we're going back probably 6 years ago now. And that was because I worked as a stop smoking advisor. And we found that in areas like maybe Govanhill or Springburn, areas of deprivation, that's where a lot of asylum seekers and refugees were getting housed. So my supervisor at the time, we knew that we had to reach the smokers in this area that were from a different culture. So back then, I was sort of sent on courses about how to engage for the health benefits people from different cultures, how to communicate with them, and how to work with interpreters. So that was all run by the Scottish Refugee Council.
That was all like a secular thing, right? You were working for the NHS.
Yeah.
You were part of a different church at that point, Tommy.
Yeah.
We used to be a youth worker, was in the Polis for a bit.
Yeah.
And then you kind of heard about 20 Schemes. Was that some video you saw that like about our church plant or something?
Yeah, it was back when you were getting an interview on Revival FM.
What? You're the one person that listened to that, yeah?
Still listen to it, Old Faithful. Yeah, so we heard that interview I heard that interview I don't know what, that must have been about 7 or 8 years ago, was
definitely.
it? And then that was about actually the same kind of time where I was in a church in Govanhill, and you notice all the issues. You're working for a secular community, but you actually realise that they don't just need a nicotine patch, they need the gospel. So the Lord was working in my heart at that point to say, no, you need to do ministry in this type of area. And so that's when I went to Bible college and at the same time get involved with 20 Schemes with your prayer meeting for a church plant.
Yeah. And then you were one of our first members of the launch team as
Yep.
well. And through that, then traded Nidri for a bit over Bingham, I guess.
Bingham, yeah.
And then I've been over in Maryhill the last couple of years as well. So have you therefore seen over that time, so from maybe 6 years ago, working in the NHS, knowing they need the gospel, but not really being able to share it? I'm sure knowing you probably did by the back door. How has that changed? Did you actually be able to work for the international community, but actually sharing the gospel?
Well, I think, back then, that's right. People were coming to you with their different health problems, and, you felt like, okay, I can maybe help them with that, but it actually doesn't change what's going to happen with their life long term. So that's when I realised I wanted to go into ministry, and now it's not like that. It's like all the health things become secondary. And then when you're walking around the likes of Maryhill, you're just seeing how much you see the need. And you see these, I think a lot of them are poor souls that have come from different countries, and a lot of them, the ladies with hijabs on, and you just really feel for them, but you know that what they need is the gospel long term.
So let's think of some different maybe types of kind of international people that might come and end up in a scheme. Like, what are some of the stories you've heard of over the years? Maybe different backgrounds, how they've ended up in one of our communities.
I think originally when I first started off sort of working with internationals, and it was in Govanhill, that was already a well-known Pakistani community. And then you had a big influx of Eastern Europeans, so that kind of changed, and it was Polish and Romanian, Czechoslovakian. And I think, that was a world in its own, and then you think, oh, is that all that's going on? And then that was my experience of Govanhill, and then you assume that all schemes will be the same or similar. But since we've come to Maryhill, skipping out Berlanark and Bingham. Since you come to Maryhill, that has like expanded like tenfold, and people are getting, you know, brought here from different African countries. There's now, like, there's people that we're now meeting from El Salvador, and I didn't know that El Salvador was a country that had such problems.
I just know it from that athlete song, Going to El Salvador. No?
Yeah, I never knew that was Alice, was it?
Yeah, well, it's a athlete.
Is it not Beck? No.
Oh, maybe it's Beck. You're older than me, that's your era.
Yeah, so certainly we're seeing people from a lot more different cultures, and you just don't realise that all these countries have problems as well. You know, it's not just people that are here looking for a better education. They are escaping dictatorship and cartels and that kind of thing as well.
And it surprises me still just the wide range of people, isn't it? Because you get some that are coming, you know, just wanting to earn more money for their family. So we've got like people who've been part of our church over the years that are just working so hard, raising their family and sending money back to places where they can't earn as much money. Then you've got people that are coming over in asylum, that are fleeing stuff. Like we had a guy who got saved, had to flee Iraq because it ended up here. And then again, you've got everything in between, like kind of trafficked and so just when we're talking about reaching internationals, it's not a one size fits all, right? We've got people that one of a girl we know well in the scheme married a Glasgow lad. She's from Poland and she's great because she's like sounds like a Glaswegian, but she's like and so there's just, it's not a one size fit all. But I do think like the one thing that maybe is similar is that traditionally, because the schemes were like working class communities, very tight knit, would have been quite suspicious of people coming from the outside. Like, have you seen some of that? Has there been...
And I think that's why, like, I feel that we've got to go the extra mile with people. You know, yes, we know that we want to share the gospel with everybody. It doesn't matter what your nationality is, what your skin colour is, but these people are coming over here. Like what I noticed, particularly in Govan Hill, it's like the first words they have to learn is sorry and please, and that's really sad, I think, because they're expecting harshness and they have to know how to react to that. So, what was the question?
Because I do think the schemes can be quite closed, but I do think some of that, I mean, the government needs to take a lot of blame for that as well, because a lot in the scheme communities already feel hard done by. Are struggling for housing, and then because that's what the social housing is, then it seems like the government are just like, well, we'll just dump everybody there, and it is in many ways created like a bit of a ready-made problem. Like we know, remember people live near us in Berlanark that faced abuse. That I would always have thought people in Scotland are not really racist, and yet there's stuff that happens because I think they just get flung in together that is just brutal. And so again, if we're Christians and if we're in this community, like, it could be maybe easy to think, no, I'm here for the working class Scottish people of this community. But actually I think the Lord's put us in a community to reach whoever he's put in that community. Like that's like Paul and Acts, isn't it? Like you're where you are, the people around you are where they are, so you can live that out. And so I think the church has got a really important role to play to take down any barriers that do exist and to preach the gospel to all of that. I
think, and that's what we've really got to try and model, because these people are going through such heartache, and I think it's up to us as well to try and explain, you know, they're here for a reason. Who would choose to come and live in a scheme in Scotland if you didn't have to? You know, what is it they're fleeing from? Why is their face so sad? And it's even people in the church that I think can be judgmental and critical about that. Like I've heard somebody say, oh, I've tried with that woman, she's really dour-faced. But actually...
Is that about you?
Or? Do you think people know what that means, dour-faced?
Probably not, no.
Like just like, you know...
What they call it rested? No, probably shouldn't call it.
Just like really sad face, but there's a reason behind it. But if people in the church don't get alongside these people and befriend them and show them the love of Jesus, then they're not going to be able to strip back those layers to find out what is going on in their lives, what is their heart, why they get a sad face, you know. And then when you do hear these stories, then, you know, you can find out things that, and even if they're not asylum seekers, it could be, as you say about the money situation, they're separate from their husband because they can't afford to live together. He's trying to earn money here, she's there, but she's also at the same time got the 3 kids, and she's got no friends. Well, it's no wonder she's sad. She's not with her husband, and you know.
So how then over the years have maybe either you personally or seen others try and reach people from international background, making those connections and ultimately share the gospel? It's some different ways maybe you've seen that happen?
Well, on a personal level, and I know that this is not everybody's cup of tea, but I think because I do feel like I've had a wee bit of an insight into what people are fleeing from through my training with the Refugee Council, like I will particularly just go up to somebody and start speaking to them. So if it's a lady that's maybe carrying some shopping bags, you know, make a comment about that, like, do you want me to help you? And then, again, this might be a bit really weirdo, but I'll just say, you know, like, here's my phone number, I just live round the corner, I work for the church. I think that it's good, but I'm lucky because I can say that I work for the church, because that kind of, you know, it takes away maybe any suspicion. Like, you couldn't just go and give somebody your phone number, but...
Lindsay certainly would not be happy.
But I would do that, you know, and that has worked. And as a result of that, the lady and her family will come to church and come in my house and that kind of thing as well. So that would be sort of on a one-to-one level. I've got no problem with doing that. But a thing that we've done in a church level that we've done recently was we hosted an Internationals Week. So like I was saying earlier, we've got so many different nationalities in Maryhill, and so the way we done this was to have dessert nights, but what we done was we allocated a sort of country for each night of the week. So we had like Spanish night, because we had Spanish people in our church, and then we've got Portuguese in our church. We've got a couple of families from El Salvador, then Korea. And we had a Nigerian night, because we've got a lot of Nigerians in our area.
This is great, and you ate food from each of these countries?
I think I put on 2 stone in that week. Awesome. I had an American night as well, so that was the most popular night, of course.
That's cool.
So that was a way for us to reach out, and we'd done a leaflet drop running up to that. So I think another way is if you can find something find out something about their culture that you can use to connect. Like what we would do, just, you know, with other white people, if it's football or, you know, music or whatever. So I found out about a Nigerian dessert called Puff Puff, and
There's a lot of Puff Puff about the schemes as well.
Yeah. Don't make the mistake I did and said, do you want to come for some Puff Puff? I had to make sure I was getting that right. So anyway, so I was going up with the leaflets, the flyers about what we're doing, and then actually see, you know, what country you're from. We're going to have like Puff Puff that night. So, and people came to the church off the back of that. And that was really awesome. And then we just made sure that we had literature, and it's then caused friendships, and you know, we recognise people in the community, and they have come to church off the back of that as well. So
and you've done stuff before, we did the training for the language class stuff. Like, what was that about?
So this is going back a good few years when I was in Berlanark, and it was a really helpful course. I think it's still on the go. It's something like how to teach the Bible. How to teach English through the Bible. And so what they would do is you could basically, like say you took, like, if it was, first of all, people that have moved to our country are really keen to learn English, and the ESOL classes are very often full. But churches can think about running these types of classes. So if people that have come here, immigrants, can see an opportunity to get in to learn English, they'll take it. And it doesn't matter if it's the Bible. So you could use things like, maybe not the Bible directly, but like say it was a painting of, like a religious painting of, like, I don't know, Jesus, like, you know, like Salvador Dali's painting or something like that. Okay, you're not going to maybe use that in the scheme, but it's going to speak to somebody. So you could use the painting, but then you're going to use the painting to then talk about the gospel. Or you could do it like, oh, we're going to have something at Easter. Let me tell you about how the culture in Scotland celebrate Easter, and then you can talk about hot cross buns and then the gospel. And they want to know about that because they want to know about the culture and they want to fit in. And I remember one time I was doing that course, and I'd also gone to Harper Church, who have got an excellent outreach and for their internationals. So I'd gone down there, and it was Maureen and Agnes that were running the class. So what they done that day was, I was still at Bible college at the time, so they had a really busy class learning English, but they said, okay, today we've got a helper and it's Lorne. We're going to sit Lorne down, but you have to practice your English by asking her questions. So naturally, because I was a Bible student, so the things are like, what do you work as? Yeah. I don't work, I'm a student. What are you studying? So I was saying the Bible. So then, do you enjoy that? So that let me use that opportunity to start talking about the gospel. And then, just as it happens, you know, Maureen had a pile of marked gospels sitting. And Maureen said, well, would you all like to just look at what Lorne's talking about? And this is a class with Muslims, Muslims from all different cultures and different countries. And we all just sat and opened, you know, the Gospel of Mark, and they went, I'll be home with it. Awesome. And that's just with them interviewing me, you know, practicing English.
I know, I think Harper do a great job of that. And it's like, sometimes, again, we can overcomplicate a lot of this stuff. And we said the same about kind of Protestant Catholic thing. Like, it can be easy to be like, oh, it's so hard, what this specific thing I need to do? But it's about meeting people, talking with people, and praying for opportunities to share Jesus, isn't it? And what you found in the international community is actually people are wanting relationship. Like, a lot of the kind of more white, like, working class in Scotland, maybe they've got their family, their community, like, when we're trying to talk to them, we just seem like a bunch of weirdos, they don't want anything to do with us. But the international community are here and they need that relationship, they need that connection, and so are more open and willing to talk, and therefore are more willing to talk about the gospel. And I think that is something, though, that we need to make sure that the churches that we're in are not just aware about it, but that we're actually explaining, no, you need to go the extra mile with them. Because what you can find is that, especially if you've maybe got an older generation where there is that barrier, like, oh, we don't know how to speak to new people, or we don't know how to speak to people from different cultures or a different language. And then we want these people to feel welcome in our churches and integrated. But we need to really teach them, look, you need to get up alongside these people after church, having a cup of tea and talk to them, and just try and imagine if that was you in that position. And it's not somebody else's job to do it, it's your job to do it. Well, let's chat about challenges then, okay? Because like, I think many people would feel intimidated, as you say, in our churches by this. So what are some of the challenges maybe you found working with kind of internationals, and maybe from their side or from your side, or how that's kind of played out?
Well, I think there is just that general, like, the barrier of you're different to me, therefore I'm not going to be able to interact with you. And you really just need to strip that back and just think, well, how does Jesus see these people? And, you know, just, you know, a smile goes a long way, and that can just open up so much. So that is a barrier. A challenge is to try and get people to overcome that. And I think the only way they can do that is by learning from us, living it out, you know, watch our example.
Because like, it's the same thing, isn't it? And again, much of ministry is uncomfortable. Like, I think, was it Colin Adams tweeted out a few years ago, ministry is just one awkward conversation after another. And we don't really like awkward conversation, we don't like feeling uncomfortable. That's why we like hanging about with people like us. And we just have to be aware that it might be uncomfortable. Like, there's going to be language barriers, like you're going to have to repeat yourself. It's like, and I'm sure you've had that as well, like, there's still, like, members of our church, we struggle to communicate with each other, and it'd be really easy to be like, oh, it's just not worth the hassle.
I mean, that is exhausting. It is exhausting to do that, but but I think you've just got to persevere, and I think you have to be honest in it. Just tell them, look, I'm sorry, I'm struggling to understand what you're saying, or could you repeat that? And you can make light of it, just have a joke, or, you know, the accent. And another thing is, I think we should be more aware of, says I that's speaking 10 to the dozen right now, but we need to be aware of how fast we speak, because and slow it down for people, because that's going to be part of them feeling they're accepted and being part of things, and that kind of
and it definitely is, particularly us, they're coming into our culture lots of fear, not used to anything.
Yeah.
Like, and if we're Christians trying to reach them, I think we need to be very adaptable and very patient and very willing to, like, they're not going to get it. Therefore, we need to make the extra mile, as you kind of said as well. What about, I was thinking about some of the challenges of the smorgasbord of different religious beliefs people might come from. So we've had a lot of people that would turn up in communities and would be Christian and would come along to our church, but their understanding of Christian would be maybe very different than our understanding. Like, have you had any experience of that? Like, how is that played out?
I think, well, I've definitely found with a lot of Nigerian families that the prosperity gospel has been a thing. They won't recognise it as that. So I think, you sort of, sometimes when you're having these conversations, like a lady in Berlanark that I was close friends with, you're trying to sort of ascertain, are we singing off the same sheet here? And you're trying to say, okay, like a checklist, so do you believe Jesus died for your sins? Check. And then you get so far, and I think they do believe the same kind of fundamentals, but then when you have to start watching for all the add-ons that come with that. And I think that's something, I suppose, that, I found that, quite a lot with different cultures, that there could be distortion. In fact, my friend Carol was telling me about, a really nice taxi driver. He's very friendly that she's been talking to lately. He's from a different country though. He's from a different country and he's telling her, I'm a Christian. Everything sounds the same, except Carol said, but he insists on worshipping on a Saturday. So I'm like, I think he might be a Seventh-day Adventist. So, we do just really have to make sure that we're whittling down the truth of the gospel, the truth of the Bible. And I guess that's something that we found, in our revitalisation work, is that we have to make sure that we are 100%, according to the scriptures, because we can't have people coming in with all different beliefs and then it's just a free-for-all. We all have to be clear on what the Bible says about different.
And yet, again, that's not dissimilar to how we reach anybody in the scheme, isn't it? Because we're always wondering, why you say you're a Christian. Again, Protestant Catholic chat was the same. What do you mean by that? And it's been able to try and find those points of like, okay, do you believe that? Like, Jesus is the only saviour, like, to be a Christian is this. And people are willing to talk about it, but I do think sometimes it takes a wee bit of patience to kind of work through. And again, maybe the temptation is, just go to a church that believes that. But actually, there's a great opportunity there, isn't there? To if these people are here in our community, if we can, teach the Bible in a faithful way, there's a real chance to disciple and the influence there for someone might have, who comes to know, good solid theology in a new and fresh way. They could spread that far and wide through the influence of a little church as well. So I think I'm encouraged that you guys are like that you see the opportunities and see the need and don't retreat from that. Like, again, I love you, Lorne. You're just go make a fool of yourself and just go and do it. Like, like that's...
but just with you saying that as well, just that's another reason why I think we need to make sure that people in church know exactly what they're going to say when it comes to, what if you do get into a gospel conversation, because quite often when we have got somebody coming from a different culture or nationality than ours, they try and find a commonality. So they're going to try and so if a Muslim's like something about Jesus, we'll just say, oh yeah, that's great, we believe in Jesus too. No, so we have to make sure that while we're trying to encourage our members of the church to talk to people, and while we're trying to encourage them to remove barriers, we also have to make sure that they don't just go with the flow for the sake of getting somebody in.
Especially when people are desperate for relationship. I guess it'd be easy for them just to say and kind of go along with whatever, and that's why we need to make sure that the gospel is pointed. Like the gospel does divide, doesn't it? And training people, and that is great. Like, finally then, as we think about, planting churches and schemes, like, is there anything you think as a church as a whole we could do to be better at integrating these different cultures into one? Like, what's your dream of, like, this is what I want a church and a scheme community with all these different people to be like?
I suppose there's a couple of different things. I mean, I guess, if we do have new converts from different cultures, like, I think we make sure that we recognise them in their own right and that they can be used in the church as well. I think sometimes, and I feel sick saying it, but there might still be like an element of racism in the church because they think we'll give the church jobs and the church roles to the white people, and yet there's so many, gifted people, and faithful Christians that could be given roles and could be really used to then reach other people of that nationality. So that's something that I would want to see, in churches, is that people from different cultures are getting used, because our schemes do not look the same anymore. Yeah. Our churches don't look the same anymore, and it is what it is.
And that's why our aim through 20 schemes has always been to reach the people of the schemes and then train them and use them for ministry. And it's just so happened that God's been like, over those 10 years, actually that maybe looks a bit differently than you thought, but our aim is still, isn't it, to find whoever God has placed in these communities and to raise them and train them up, particularly the ones that might be marginalised by the rest of mainstream society and wouldn't be raised up to serve in the same way. So I'd love to see that.
And I think on a practical level is just try and think about, what Bibles are we using in the church? Are they going to be easy for people to understand? So for example, we do a community Bible study on a Friday, but we would maybe have like Nigerians and the family from El Salvador there. But that's not going to be helpful for them if somebody's reading out the NAS and somebody's reading out of a CSB and somebody's reading out the King James. So just, practical things like make sure there's enough of the ESV for everybody. Or if you do want to do a leaflet drop, why not just put one word from their language and then they know that the welcome is for them as well. Draw a map of where your church is, just basic things, and just try and think beyond, what helps them to understand about, where we are so that they can come and hear the gospel. Yeah,
because again, our prayer is that we see in Ephesians, don't we, that one body of Christ, there's no longer Jew or Greek, there's no longer slave or free. The Lord is going to save people from these communities, and we want them to be one church in these communities. They're going to take the gospel out to the lost of our communities. And I'm really encouraged you've kind of given your life to that, your encouragement to us. And
who knew?
I think this is helpful, I know. But cool, Lord, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.